I made a comment on a post Destiny made on X. Of course, I can't directly respond to the post because Destiny has blocked me because he's blacklisted me because he gets tired of getting wrecked in debates. And basically, it has to do with Destiny's arguing with this streamer Asmongold. And he's calling Asmongold fascist adjacent. And this is something I love from the left. So many of these people on the left, they'll support what I would consider fascist policies. Like, for example, Destiny has called for the censorship of people he disagrees with multiple times, up to and including me. He's called for, in referencing me one day as a conspiracy theorist, said that they should ban all social media like that. He has said that Trump supporters are effing around and finding out if they get shot and killed because, hey, that's what happens. He's not cheering for it. He's just saying it's to be expected. He's made fun of firefighter Corey Compatore that died at a Trump rally. He was asked specifically by his co-host at the time, Pisco, if he wanted the bullet to kill Trump, to which his response was something to the effect of, I don't know what I could say because of terms of service. However, the worst thing that could happen was him firing in that bullet, not killing Trump. And so to hear someone like him say, Asmongold is fascist adjacent because he had some opinions on Trump's deportation policies. Yeah, I'm sorry. That criticism rings hollow from a guy who wants voices that aren't his to be censored. Voices that he thinks are dangerous right-wing voices to be censored. That says the worst thing that could happen was that bullet missing Trump. Sorry. I don't want to hear that guy complain about fascism. And of course, I made this post, and this person on X that claimed that they were a Destiny fan said that they would happily argue that position. In fact, we can go to the thread if you want. This is who I'm supposed to be debating this evening. So let's just go through the thread real quick. Whatever. I would have responded to this post, but the coward Destiny's blocked me. He's advocating for censorship of those he dislikes. He said all Trump supporters get killed at a rally have F around find out. He said the worst thing could happen was the would-be assassin's bullet missing Trump. He advocated for removing Trump from the ballot. He has the nerve to call people fascist adjacent. And it's interesting when people like him decry hypotheticals that his opponents may do, that they are actually already things the folks like he cheers for have already done. For example, he mentions Trump supporters cheering if Trump executes American citizens for arbitrary reasons. And yet, can you show me him refusing to vote for Obama or his party when Obama ordered the execution of American Alawaki without due process? Of course, Destiny will say, that's different, as always, and say he means Trump executing people for different reasons. And this Joe person, let's find him. He says, have me on your show, Rob. I, like you, work full-time and would have the same opportunities for research time as you. I'm not clouded up like Destiny, but I can make his arguments for him. And I won't need ChatGPT to help me with my research. Let me know when and where. I say, sure, man. Next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern is the next time I'm streaming. DM me for a link. I'm glad you don't need ChatGPT like me. Will you be relying on your chat like your daddy Destiny? Or perhaps you will rage quit and spiral out of control like him. Look forward to seeing you there. He says, do we want to go line by line of your tweet, or do you actually have a prompt for conversation? I've seen you debate, and it's like drinking from a fire hose. To which I responded, you're going to make Destiny's argument about everything I said in my post. As a Destiny wannabe, I've no doubt you have plenty experience drinking from fire hoses, though. So that's it. That's the debate we're supposed to have. Would you say the general thesis, this is what I was trying to say in that post. You
Sure.
tell me if you disagree that this is you interpreted it. That Destiny himself has cheered for fascist-like behavior, and now it's hypocritical for him to condemn other people like Asmongold as fascist adjacent. Would you say that's a fair understanding of what my criticism was?
That is, yeah, that's how I took your criticism.
And so your response to me saying you could make Destiny's argument is you're going to say that Destiny hasn't cheered for fascist-like behavior, or you're going to say, like, what is the general thesis of
so
what
my for me, the way I look at it is that he's correct, and that the right would cheerlead for this behavior, and that the left in general, or I'm sorry, not the left, my apologies, Destiny in general is correct in that assumption. And then I am not aware of him making fascist-like adjacent statements, so I would need you to point to evidence of that. So, because, well, I mean, the way that you stated it in your tweet, if you want to kind of just go into it now.
I would like you to explain in the recent things that I have talked about where you've seen me taking people out of context. You said recently you've seen me do that several times. Can you give me some examples?
Well, so this was I was watching your debate with Destiny from about 7 months ago.
Okay.
The one where you talked about hold on. You talked about your first conversation. So this was, I don't know if this was before or after the 5-hour chat GPT bullshit, but you jumped on a Twitter space with him and Pisco, and you were claiming that Destiny claimed that writing is the other side of voting. And when Destiny listened back to the clip that you were in reference to, there's really, you're kind of taking and he says that at the time of the debate as well too, you're taking a 2-hour long conversation, and if that is what you got from the 2-hour conversation, you're taking it not only out of context, but you're taking it without the rest of the 2-hour conversation, and that's just kind of what you're boiling down your points to. So
okay, so just to be clear, you would say anytime someone talks about one part or one quote from a multi-hour conversation, that because they haven't included the full 2 hours, that they're being disingenuous and misrepresenting a person.
I think you can do quotes without misrepresenting someone, but I think you not, if purposely or not, I'm not accusing you of that at all. What I'm saying is I just think that you misrepresent quotes and you say that this
is... So then you'll acknowledge it would be fair game for someone to take a quote. It's just in this particular instance, I misrepresented what Destiny was saying.
I would tend to agree with that.
Okay,
yes.
so you must have watched that 2-hour debate then.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so how was it that I misrepresented Destiny? My claim was that Destiny was making the point that up to a certain point, it's okay to have rioting. I was specific in saying he didn't say against private property. He
Correct.
said against public institutions. He
Correct.
said if there was a lack of faith in public institutions, you think that they're screwing you over, that it's up to a certain level okay to use violence against them. And then he goes on to say, in fact, rioting and voting and rioting are two sides of the same coin. So where did I misrepresent? When I'm making, you'll admit that what I'm trying to say there is, Destiny, in the past, you've said that some amount of political violence against institutions is acceptable. It's like voting. It's getting your point across. You'll admit at least that that's what I was saying when I brought up that quote, correct? That's
well,
what I was
so I think that's
to
what
say.
you're implying. I think that's what you're implying when
Correct.
you bring up that quote. But I also I don't necessarily agree with your summarization of the 2-hour argument, which I think that might be semantic. Like you may see the argument going one way, I might see the argument going another way.
No, that's fair. So we could at least agree on this. We could start from the position of, we both agree on what I was claiming he said. We agree with that. That he was saying that some, okay. So then you now know that that was a misrepresentation. You watched the 2-hour debate. So can you tell me what Destiny was really saying when he said rioting's the other side of the coin of voting? Go ahead and tell me what he was saying. Because you're saying that you watched
so hold on.
I wasn't misrepresented.
First off, real quick. I wasn't coming in here to talk about a debate from 2 years ago. So I can't go through the entire, we were talking about the here and now. So like, as much as I want to kind of relitigate the conversation, from what I'm saying is I'm using this as an example of how you can.
But what you're doing is you're using an example. You're saying, I have personally seen you misrepresent people. I say, can you give me an example? You bring up this example. I say, great, let's talk about it. You're like, I'm unwilling to talk about it. You're aware that Destiny in this clip is defending lockdowns from the pandemic, correct?
Yeah.
Do you find that to be fascist?
No.
Can you define fascist?
If you give me a minute, I wasn't ready to define fascism.
It's all right. What do you think Destiny means when he says Asmongold's fascist adjacent? I'm not a gotcha with the term. What do you think he means when he says that?
Well, what I think he means is that it's like authoritarian light. Like you are looking for a strong man. It kind of the same. I would look at it as a similar model. I think fascism is way too loaded a term. That's why I usually try not to use it. But at the same time, I think you look at authoritarian regimes like Viktor Orban in Hungary or Putin in Russia, and it's sympathizing to those types of governments coming into power. And I believe that is at the crux of what Destiny's arguing about with Asmongold, about him moving the goalpost to be able to continue to support Trump, and that you're supporting an authoritarian individual, you're supporting a strong man. So that's
I would agree. So for me, I always thought fascism, and I want to be clear here. This is not how I think Destiny's using the term. But to me, fascism was always like sort of a combination of like corporate and government power used for like authoritarian purposes. That's how but I think that the way most people use fascism is just basically a stand-in for like grotesque authoritarianism. Would you say that's fair?
I would probably, without trying to make this an hour-long.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get too semantic about it. So for me, it's blatantly authoritarian to tell people like you can't go to work. That's authoritarian.
So can you explain to me why you feel that way?
Yes, because I hate to get semantic, but to me, I would define authoritarian as I have rights that the government is unilaterally saying, nope, we're taking those rights away. So if the government says you can't speak, you can't defend yourself, you can't leave your home to go to work, I think that's all obvious authoritarianism. You could say, but that's necessary authoritarianism, that's good authoritarianism, but nonetheless, it's authoritarian.
Okay, so so basically, so you, in this argument, you could say that there's things called like good authoritarianism. Then
you could make that argument if you want. I'm saying that people could make that argument.
Because like, yes, but you can also, but like there's public safety and public health safety stuff that come into play here, that once certain, like a state of emergency, when you have a state of emergency for let's just say you have a massive blizzard, the state says, hey, listen, there's a state of emergency, we need to we need to keep everybody off the road so that we can get the plows through. Would you call calling a state of emergency for a blizzard, would you call that authoritarian?
I don't know. Probably I would still say it's authoritarian. I might say that authoritarian is necessary somewhere. Let's take it directly to the pandemic. If there was a biological weapon that was released in New York City, right? Mm-hmm. And we knew that it had a 90% fatality rate and it was like 80% infectious, would it be authoritarian for the government to say, no one's allowed to leave New York, you're all barricaded in here like a zombie movie or something? Yeah. But would you say, look, it's a necessary evil? Maybe. You might. But the point I'm trying to make here is we're going to disagree. I understand the people that supported lockdowns, who supported that authoritarianism, are going to say, but that was good, right? And the problem is it wasn't good, one. But if you're then going to criticize, if the Trump administration says, well, we're trying to kick out terrorists, we're trying to kick out gangsters, and you're like, no, that's authoritarian, that's fascism. Well, that word sort of loses meaning when you yourselves have cheered for more authoritarian policies and just said, yeah, but our authoritarianism was necessary.
Okay, but so
it was a necessary evil.
Let me stop you there though, because so when you talk about, so what specific laws did the lockdowns break for you to make it authoritarianism?
Well, I would say free speech and free assembly.
Where was free speech and free assembly? Where was that truly affected in a public setting? Because for me, you can have free assembly. So for the state that I lived in, I'm just using an example. Sorry, it was rhetorical. Mm-hmm. So for me, for example, the state that I lived in, I would argue that we met that criteria of freedom of assembly because we were allowed to have social circles of 10 to 15 people. So to me, that's
authoritarianism. What if you wanted 20?
No, because you're allowed to still assemble.
No, that's okay, but
so you have the freedom you still have the freedom to assemble.
No.
The government's not breaking into your house and arresting you for having 10 people. Nobody broke into a house and arrested.
That's not true. There were arrests. There were arrests. For example, I could point to you news stories that occurred in my state in Philadelphia where neighbors had called on a wedding reception that was happening where there were like 30 people and they broke in and arrested people there and saying, well, it's not authoritarianism if they allowed 10 people. So then based on your rationale, my freedom of speech and freedom of assembly is not being violated as long as I can meet with at least one other person?
Well, I mean, it depends on. So I'd have to reread what the assembly, the way it reads in the Constitution, because
I mean, but what if Trump
again? Because hold on for a second though, because like we apply these to the other amendments in the Constitution. We do have rules and regulations, even though the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. We still have rules and regulations either at a state or a federal level that limit us to having certain types of firearms. So would you call that authoritarianism?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
So
I think about it then.
But again, that example is less egregious than what we're talking about here. Like you seem to be quibbling like, well, as long as we are allowed to have 10 people, then that's not a violation of our right to assembly. It certainly is.
Yeah, no, it's
and not to mention, I could talk specifics. There were people that got arrested for being in public parks. There were people that got arrested for being on public beaches. There were people that were arrested for attempting to go to work. I personally knew someone who got fined because their restaurant in Pennsylvania wasn't allowed to open except from the hours of noon to 5, and they served someone food at 11:55 and got a fine for that. There were people that were told that
they broke the rules. So they broke,
yes,
you're telling me
the
people that are
authoritarian
breaking
fascist
but
rules.
if you put in rules, but that's your opinion though, Rob. Your opinion is that it's authoritarianism, where it's just ordinance that are put in place. So any type of an ordinance for you would be authoritarianism then.
No, what I'm
in
saying
a crux.
I'm saying that those,
whole.
I'm saying not any, but I am saying that ones that blatantly go against the foundation of our government, such as the First Amendment, yes, I would consider those authoritarian. Now, every argument that you're making here, you realize I could turn and make a defense for all of Trump's policies. For example, I could say, oh, well, the Immigration Nationality Act says that we're allowed to kick people out that we think are subverting U.S. politics or our political stances. Therefore, they broke the rules when those people, when Khalil was at that protest and it was trespassing. What does it matter? You're saying everything.
No, because like Abreu Kilmar Garcia wasn't afforded due process.
We could talk about Garcia here later, no problem, right? But why would due process matter? The right to free assembly is something that we're guaranteed, just like due process. And when that was violated, you're like, but that's okay. It was for good reasons.
I never said it was okay. I said that there was restrictions put in place for public health safety, and you think that that's authoritarianism, but you're still afforded that. You're still afforded that. So I would disagree with you. The same way the same way I would disagree with the Second Amendment one, because again,
it's outrageous. You're making a distinction without difference, which doesn't have a meritorious difference, right? So what you're saying is like, well, to violate Garcia's due process is outrageous, right? Because that's guaranteed in the Constitution, right? But to violate your First Amendment, well, you were still allowed to hang out with 9 other people, and that was for public health. So it's okay. I think
they're fundamentally two different things. They're fundamentally two different things.
I think that the argument that Trump's team would make is, no, this is fundamentally about people's safety as well, and getting out violent gangbangers like MS-13.
So then we're just not going to give a person due process. Then that's the
like Rob. Here's the problem. We're not going to give people the right to assembly. We're not going to allow people to go to work. You're not going to allow people to go to their mom's funeral. You're not going to allow people to go to their.
If Trump gave Garcia due process, I would be okay with them deporting him.
We're not going to allow people to go grocery shopping. I could play this game all day.
That's fine. I mean, you're wrong though, because it's two totally different things.
No, it's not.
You're trying to make a correlation here, and there's nothing.
There is a correlation. Yes or no? Were both of these in your mind authoritarian?
What?
The lockdowns and all the various things we saw from that, and the deportation of Garcia.
So the deportation of Garcia is authoritarianism definitionally. The
why is that, by the way? Because he didn't get due process.
Yes, which is afforded to him under the Constitution.
I promise we'll talk about this all you want. You want to get to these quotes real quick?
I mean, if you want to, but I mean, hey, listen, it's your show, man.
Okay, so I promise we talk about Garcia.
We can about another 15 minutes or so.
Another 15 minutes. Okay, here's the.
I got a life, man. I'm sorry, I'm traveling for work. I got other stuff I got to do here.
See if you can hear.
Territorial at all. I think that affecting political change like this is fine. Like that's part of the goal. Like activism and riots are one side of the coin, and the other side is voting. Like bringing awareness to issues like this, and an attempt to get people to vote differently is part of the goal, right?
You were saying?
Yeah, so activism and riots are one side of the other side of voting. So that big word activism you just cut out. Again, like I said, you loaded the language by cutting out activism, because that is truly what the conversation is about. He's not advocating for protesting, or he's not advocating for riots. He's advocating if you're feeling like you're not being heard through your vote, you activate, you do activism, and you protest.
So I want to go back to now the original criticism Destiny had of Asmongold, which you were saying that you were sort of defending. And that criticism is, in general, Trump supporters will defend anything Trump says. And now what you've done you've literally came in here, you've heard word for word what Destiny said, and you're immediately parsing. Oh, well, yes, he did say parsing words. That's language works. He did say rioting was the other side of the same coin as voting, but he also said activism and rioting. And so therefore, I think he meant something different. Everyone that's listening could hear what he just said. Everyone could hear it, and you are making a fool of yourself, and you are projecting that Trump supporters won't criticize Trump in the same way that you, when it's blatantly shown evidence to you, won't criticize when it's brought in front of you. Now I could dig through this.
What do you want me to criticize Destiny here?
You could say I was wrong. Destiny absolutely said it, that violence was the other, or rioting was the other side of the coin to voting.
Rob, I am wrong then. I apologize.
Well, you also admit that you're wrong when you said I misrepresented him.
Sure. I still think you're loading his language, but that's fine. We can. You want
to go to the next clip?
Yeah,
Let's
sure,
see if
whatever.
I can find this. Now, this clip is we're trying to find Destiny saying that we should ban social media. Let's see if I can find that. All right.
I don't know what they're saying. I don't want to misrepresent your viewpoints, but is there one thing that connects all these people into going down the conspiracy shit? Yes, actually. It's going to Destiny. Come on, they're on completely different levels in terms of wrong. If you want to moralize it, sure, but factually, no. And I mean, like we've watched it happen over and over and over and over again. My mom was repeating some pieces of misinformation that left-leaning people spread. For instance, I remember my mom saying the police opened the gates to let the protesters into the Capitol. A lot of left-leaning people were retweeting that. We watched left-leaning people retweet the thing about the one cop saying Blue Lives Matter to the people. It never happened. We've seen like a whole bunch of misinformation being retweeted. We've seen people, everybody retweets misinformation. This isn't like a satisfying solution, but like the best thing that could happen for like the media environment right now is all forms of alternative media should be completely banned, and only like the mainstream publications can fight against each other doing it. But that
catch that? All alternative media should be banned. Only mainstream publications should be allowed to argue against. That sounds pretty fascistic. Only corporations and the government should have a voice. Now, am I misrepresenting that? Are you there? Oh, I'm sorry. I did have you kind of muted. I'm sorry. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard it.
Okay, so was I accurate that he literally says that we should only have mainstream voices?
No, he says what the. So again, we're just gonna play word games here, Rob. But what he said was the best thing for the media environment that we're in now is to cut out alternative media. That it's a suggestion. All right, you know what, Rob? I hear what you're saying and I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, like this is the normative loading that you're doing to his conversation, like what he's talking about. Because if you listen to Destiny talk about the media environment, he talks about it on the left side and the right side, how there is a bunch of, and he's talking in this clip about conspiracy theories as well too, about how when there's misinformation, there's a factual side and then there's an infactual side, and what I'm assuming he's applying to is the misinformation side of things, where it's not factually correct, where you can't prove it with data, you can't prove it with science. That stuff should be pushed down.
Okay, so again, what I said, you've done what I accurately predicted you would. You would say it's different when we do it. When
That's
Destiny's calling, that is what you just said.
No, that's not what I said.
Well,
that's not what I said.
Let me steel man your position. Well, this wouldn't be authoritarian or fascism, because what he's saying is we would have to cut out all of that social media to get rid of disinformation. And he's criticizing the left and the right, but he has this problem with disinformation because it's very dangerous to the public discourse. So that's why he's suggesting getting rid of these platforms.
Yeah, I would say
right. And so then my response to that is right. When your side does things like recommending banning all social media, so only mainstream publications have a
but again, we're going to talk about magnitude. Hold on. But like, no, I just let you go with the clip.
Finish real quick.
Go ahead.
When I'm like, wow, that sounds very fascist. By definition, fascist. You're like, but there's a good reason for that fascism. Hashtag it's different. Republicans won't criticize their side. Oh, there he is. There's the coward now. I'm too much of a coward to call in, but this dumb streamer's too scared to talk to me directly. Here we go. Here's the link. Call in. Here we go. He's here. Unholy rap. Da 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 da. He's here.